You're watching What She Said on YouTube.
You've written a book.
I have. I've written a book called Confessions of a Girlpreneur, Life, Love, Business, and Babies. I decided to write the book a number of years ago after I built an industry-leading company with an exit, and I felt that I really needed to share my story about how I bootstrapped a company into the millions and was able to sell it to inspire other girls and women, that if I can do it, you can do it.
Well, I'm already inspired. Let's go.
So that's the reason why I wrote the book, and it was published in October 2014, and it's done really, really well. And what I wanted to do, again, is inspire girls and women that if I can become an entrepreneur, I'm actually a social worker by trade. I'm a master's in social work, not actually a trauma expert. But I decided that once I saw that there was an opening in the market, there was an opportunity to, do good and monetize and build a company. Then after that, it was, let's make this happen.
So this is Confessions of a Girlpreneur.
Yes.
Right. So what motivated you to actually start putting pen to paper or keys to keyboard on this? Was there one specific thing?
There was one specific thing, actually. I was in a meeting a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, and again, it was a venture capital meeting, all males, over 55, the whole, that former, sort of what I consider to be a relatively closed business model. Mm-hmm. And we were chatting, and I just realized that they just didn't get it. They just didn't get women in entrepreneurship, women in business, how we build companies differently, how we do things differently. And then I did a keynote after that for the Globe and Mail, and again, I was the only female on the panel, and I was talking, and then afterwards there was literally a lineup of girls and parents out the door waiting to chat with me. And they wanted to know, did I coach, which I don't, for entrepreneurs? Are there books that they can, read? And I said, well, I don't really know. I know a lot of great business books, but they're dry. But girls learn through stories, and girls need mentors and role models, and they need sponsors, and they need people who will be their cheerleaders so they can cheerlead it themselves. So I thought, I'm going to write a business book that's going to be fun, it's going to be entertaining, but it's going to be loaded with facts. And that's why I call it Confessions of a Girlpreneur, because any self-made woman will confess that there's no straight line to the top. We have to balance business and babies. We have to balance, partners or former partners or school or work or, and that's the real reason why I decided to write the book, was based on a whole series of incidents.
So by filling that gap with your book, have you received feedback from some young women who've read it, and what difference it's making in the way they move forward?
I have actually. Most of the women that have read it have felt that entrepreneurship is now attainable for them. Mm-hmm. Because I don't come from a business background. I didn't come from money. I didn't have networks. I didn't play at a high-end golf club. Nothing like that. I was a regular girl, young woman who had a passion for trauma and helping people. Mm-hmm. And then as I got into the market, I realized that there were huge gaps in services that I could fill through third-party billing. And, so after World Trade Center, we did a lot of work in my company, Dawson College, OC Transfer, Ontario Power. These were all contracts that were brought to us just because nobody else was doing them, and then we became the best in the business. So the feedback I've had from girls and women is really, really good. And some girls want to be lifestyle entrepreneurs, which is fantastic. They want to, let's say they're an engineer, they don't want to go for the big enchilada, they don't want to build a big company like I did. They just want to be self-employed. Right. So the book can appeal to them. And then there's also other women that I've chatted with who are actually in the process. They're doing revenue of anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million. They're in that area. And then I've chatted with other women who've read the book who are actually capping out, or not capping out, they're starting to work towards the cap rates of 3.5 to 5 million in gross revenue.
I'm fascinated by your story, though, in that you were the trauma specialist. You worked through probably some of the most difficult and stressful situations in recent years. So the World Trade Center, the SARS crisis. Mm-hmm. Part of your transition, did it come from almost being burned out by the seriousness of the trauma circumstances you were dealing with, or was it just for you just that time?
When I sold the company? Mm-hmm. It was a number of things. I've been doing it for 15 years in total, so I felt that it was time for me to take a break. And like many self-made women, our personal lives become challenging at points. So I found myself a full-time single parent of a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I had this, this multi-million-dollar company that was exploding in growth. So it was one of those hard things as a female is, did I want my children raised by 2 or 3 nannies? And I have girlfriends who do that, and I support that wholeheartedly. But for me, I felt it was time for me to take a 5-year break. I had a great offer on the company. I'd won tons of awards. It was now time for me to shift my focus. But I then went, again, within a year I built another company, built a real estate holding company. So it's when we're like this, we have 2 speeds, we have on and off.
That's it, yeah.
Did you ever resent the fact that you had to make those choices, or did you just see that as another challenge and a way of propelling you into another direction? Sort of one door closes, another opens.
That's a really good question. I don't want to use the word resent because obviously, I adore my children and everything. I'm very, very blessed with that. But yeah, absolutely. There are choices, and this is what I'm going to be talking about in my keynote. As females, as women, we have choices and decisions to make and thoughts to process that our male counterparts don't have to, right? So if you look historically, successful men have historically chosen wives, right? That person is in a supportive role, potentially a secondary role, shoring up all the home-related activities.
A home assistant.
A home assistant. Whereas with women, we don't have that in male partners. Typically, we don't. So what my kind of resentment was the fact that I felt like I was, like many female founders or successful women, I felt that I was ahead of my time and that the other gender had not caught up yet. And that for me was my biggest issue is, why do I have to hire a nanny? Why do I have to hire a cleaner? Why do I have to have a cook? Why do I have to have those things when I could have, ideally, a partner who could assist with that? And that's what I say to young girls, especially, teenagers, early 20s, even up to 30, because I had my first child at 37. I made a conscious choice to delay motherhood because I wanted to focus on my career. So what I say to girls and women is, number one, really you have to think about these things before you start to rock it in the business world. Because, we have more choices to make than men do on that front. Pick your personal partner wisely. Have those discussions before. If my company explodes in growth and I'm making millions of dollars, are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable being in a secondary role when I'm working 80 hours a week? Are you going to pick up the slack at home? Are we going to hire out? And the other thing is as women know that we can do it all. We just can't do it all at the same time. So I brought babies to NAFTA conferences. I brought babies to boardrooms. I was nursing in accounting meetings. I was doing it all, and I did it unapologetically.
I think that's the key right there. Do it unapologetically.
Exactly. And if someone wasn't comfortable with that, I'm going to be sharing my story of how I brought my baby to NAFTA. I was presenting in front of 1,000 people after the World Trade Center, and she's just parked in her little car seat beside me. And she was the hit of the conference when the world was, ungluing from this horrible disaster. So I hope I've answered your question. It was not resentment, but more, what? We have to talk about this. We have to talk about the dark side of being a successful woman and also wanting to be a mommy or wanting to be a partner or what have you. We have to have these discussions. And that's when I reached out to other women because, women can be such incredible mentors and supporters of other women. And I reached out to other women who had gone through and said, what did you do? How did you do this? Like, I'm sleeping 4 hours a night. Like, how do you do this? And that's where I really learned, I can do it.
Fiona, what do you think the difference is from country to country? We see the European models in Northern Europe, and they do have the work-life balance. If you're still at the office after 5 o'clock, you're considered not very good at your job. The husband and wife balance seems to be more effective, and there are designated family days. Do you think that North America as a whole needs to maybe move towards this more so that we achieve a balance here for men and women and families?
I think, when you're an entrepreneur, the concept of balance is really non-existent. If you're going to build a company, you are really doing it 24/7. To be a successful entrepreneur, you can't do it 8 to 4, 9 to 5. Anyone that I know who's built $1 million plus companies, they really are on all the time. I think the concept of balance, idealistically, I think it's great. Perhaps if you're in a job or profession that has, constraints with regards to hours or what have you. But as an entrepreneur, you're always networking, you're always marketing, you're always selling, you're always hustling, you're always doing. And sometimes that's, Saturday at a tennis match or Friday night for drinks with a client. So it's very difficult. However, I think where we could get more of a balance is looking at gender roles and how we can support that, right? So again, a lot of the venture capital, a lot of these meetings happen at 7 a.m. in the morning. Well, most female founders they have children, are getting their kids ready for school at 7 in the morning, right? So we don't get to go to those breakfasts because I want to see my girls head out to school in the morning. That's a really important touch point in the day for them with me. So those are the sorts of things I think need to be changed, but the whole concept of balance is something that's really challenging when you're in the private sector.
What do you think the key difference is between, you said there were key differences that you found between men and women as you were coming up in the story. What are they?
The key differences in
developing a business, or the attitudes for business. When you first sat down, you said you noticed that there were key differences between what was expected, and this was one of the reasons that you wanted to put it down in the book.
I think, again, it's a great question. It's a large question. There's so many differences. Women approach different business, typically a bit differently. Women are a bit more risk averse, which actually works in our favor. Because I will say, do you want to burn brightly or do you want to burn for a long time? So as women, we tend to be, what makes us a bit more risk averse actually makes us more risk savvy. I think another aspect that works in our favor is that a lot of women like to be below the radar in terms of profitability and growth and wealth. And as a result, sometimes we're underestimated when we're building multi-million-dollar companies. Whereas more historically in the entrepreneur ecosystems, the minute I've seen some of the guys make $1 million, everybody knows about it. Whereas the girls are much more quiet about it, and they're buying real estate and they're investing, but they're quiet about it. And that I think works in our favor, because then when they do pop up, the guys are going, wait, how did that happen? I bought my first luxury car 7 years ago. I could have bought one, 20, but I didn't, because I knew my overhead a month was well over $100,000. We were bootstrap, cash flow financing. I never once in all the years I owned the business missed payroll, never once. And that was because I was very conservative in terms of how money was spent. So I think that can be a difference. Again, these are gross generalizations. I think as well, women are powerful networkers. And if there's one thing I can do with this keynote today is to really reinforce, what, ladies, if I can do it, you can do it. But really network. So when I go to events and I see women, sort of standing together, I'm like, okay, I hope you're talking about business, and reach outside of that group that you're in. Go talk to people you don't know. Go talk to the guys. Go and just get out there and start chatting and mingling and getting all that confidence up. And unfortunately, with a lot of the networks that are out there, because they're run by men, they don't invest in many of the women entrepreneurs because they don't understand the concept. If that makes sense, yeah. So when I was trying to get money for a trauma company, I couldn't get it because the venture cap networks are like, well, I would use that service, so why would I invest in it?
Well, it sounds like the attendees are in for a wonderful keynote. Lots of great takeaways. And thank you for spending a bit of time with us this morning.
My pleasure, thank you.
And the name of the book again is?
Confessions of a Girlpreneur, Life, Love, Business, and Babies.
Where can you get it? Life, Love, Business, and Babies. And
you can buy it through my website, FionaGilligan.com, or it's also on Amazon. And I believe that TD very graciously has bought a whole number of books, boxes of books to give out.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we're just for all our listeners across the country who may be listening and may want to get the book. Sounds great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Fiona.